Hello, everyone. Thanks for tuning in to the Throw Zone. Today we have a fun episode with Rachel Richeson, and today we're gonna have another weight thrower and hammer thrower. I know, huge shock. We're on a streak now, but no, we're really lucky to have her. Rachel threw 25-28 this year in the weight throw, which was number 8 in world history. She was the USA weight throw national champion as well as a 2025 leader. So, Rachel, thanks for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. But we'll take a quick moment to thank a couple of our sponsors here. I'd like to thank Lincoln Microphone. They have been providing our microphones here at our Lincoln headquarters, and they specialize in microphone repair and custom microphone work. So if you're in need of a custom project or getting something fixed, please give them a look. And if you pay with Bitcoin, they do offer 50% off. And then we also would like to thank Shubert Cattle and Farms LLC in Fall City, Nebraska. If you want to get stronger in the gym, or if you're trying to get some bigger throws, add a little more power, you just need to get in contact with me. I can get you set up with Shubert Cattle and Farms, which they offer high quality beef from the farm. Whether you're looking to get a full cow, half a cow, just any type of premium protein, you're looking at the right place. So no middleman, and we'll get you right connected with them. So just give us a DM at the Throw Zone. But anyways, we'll get the ball rolling here. So Rachel, when did you start throwing?
So I started throwing a little bit later down the line than I think most people did. So I did track ever since I was a little kid, I think kindergarten. But I always did the sprints and jumps, and that continued all through grade school, middle school, first couple years of high school. Mainly did the 300 hurdles, triple jump was my best thing, long jump. And I was also an alternate on a state qualifying 4x4 team. So that was kind of my deal. But volleyball was actually my main sport. And I was a pretty good volleyball player, did the whole like club travel thing. But I don't know, kind of over time, the long and triple jump thing kind of started to stagnate. And my high school head coach combined with my dad were both kind of like, hey, you're a good volleyball player, you have a really good arm. Let's see what would happen if we put a discus in your hand. And I said, okay. So that was my junior year of high school. Came out for junior track season through discus. Through, I think, 112.8 my first year, which is, I mean, solid for a first year. Wasn't gonna, do too much for me. I think I barely made it to the Pennsylvania State meet. But then just kind of kept going with it. High school throws coach got me into, some camps and clinics and kind of figured out what I was doing. Ended up improving by the next year to 144.9. Threw a little shot too. Wasn't anything, like 36 feet. But at that point, I had already gotten into Notre Dame in the fall of my senior year. Was just planning to go there. Was actually signed up to do marching band. I also play the saxophone. Yes.
Okay, it's funny you say that. So I played French horn and mellophone in marching band growing up. So shout out to my North Band.
Yeah.
No, it's funny you mentioned that. I've met a handful of people that like competed Division One, like a few of my teammates at Nebraska even that did marching band in high school. I guess it's kind of like a fun little side thing a lot of people did. But
so that was my plan, what I was just gonna do as something in my free time at Notre Dame. But by the time, kind of halfway through my senior track season, I was throwing like low 130s. And then actually without me really asking him to, my high school throws coach sent an email to throws coach at Notre Dame, just give him my stats and say, is there a spot in the team? And Beltran, my coach at Notre Dame, saw the email and he said, oh yeah, the improvement you had in just a year, absolutely a spot. Like, just come out to the squad and kind of see what happens. And so then I had to unsign up for marching band and did track instead.
Yeah, so one thing I thought was really interesting was you mentioned that your background in volleyball and how your coach kind of scouted you out to try throwing just from that background. I always found that was really interesting. I've known a couple of people that, even one of my teammates, she was a javelin thrower at Nebraska, but when she was getting recruited, different coaches were going to her volleyball games. They were watching her arm speed on spikes because they were interested about if you're able to move your arm that fast spiking a ball, that theoretically you should be able to move your arm that fast with a javelin.
Right.
Yeah. So that part is
it was just a natural consequence of, I was a decent triple jumper, but I didn't have I was fast, but not fast enough to be good. Triple jump, I could kind of, muscle it out, but yeah.
Yeah. So at what point did you know your senior year that you were going to continue throwing?
My senior year of high school or senior year of college?
High school.
High school. When my high school coach sent that email. Yeah, honestly, I'd been kind of debating it with him. I was never too set never really had the dream of doing sports in college. Like, obviously, it would have been nice, and it's something everyone who does sports kind of thinks about, but I never really had a realistic pathway, you know? Like, I was a good volleyball player. I think I was all state my senior year, but like, I always wanted to go to Notre Dame. And so, like, yeah, I maybe could have played like D2, D3 volleyball, maybe like a smaller D1 if I really tried to, but I always wanted to go to Notre Dame and I wasn't good enough to play volleyball at Notre Dame. So that wasn't really too much on my radar.
Yeah, so I like a lot of people I feel like are so determined of I need to go Division 1 or I need to do XYZ. I think it's really nice that like throwing Division 1 wasn't even like your main goal. That you had your goal in mind of what you wanted to do and then just sort of,
At all.
your
Yeah.
work ethic and everything just kind of got you to where you were and it just went along. That's something that I feel a lot of people could take a number from, whether that is if they really want to, continue on volleyball, for example, that they have other options, other places, but it's not a bad thing if you just want to go to school somewhere because that's
Yeah.
where you want to go to school.
Yeah. That was me until I just happened to start throwing a discus far.
Yeah. So when you started at Notre Dame, did you know that you were going to throw the hammer at all, or when did you start training for that?
So I mean, I think it's kind of a common thing at most colleges is that mostly with like shot disc people, sometimes jab people, but the coaches will just kind of try to teach everyone hammer and it either kind of sticks or it doesn't. I don't know if this case everywhere, but I feel like I've heard that's kind of a common thing. So that was just kind of what happened with me. Yeah, started learning the hammer. I mean, I was okay at it as a freshman. I mean, it probably wasn't until my sophomore year until that started to become kind of the thing that, came out ahead of the other two, even though I still did all three, all 5 years. But yeah, I was just kind of teaching me it and see if it sticks and
And
just
then
kind of,
just kind of gradually
yeah,
improved. Yeah, my when I first went to Nebraska to throw, I was a glider in high school, so I knew I had to learn the spin.
yeah,
I threw the
yeah. They tried
discus,
that for
but
me too. Yeah, because I mean, I threw shot for just my senior year of high school, so and I glided, but so we tried it, I think, two separate times for a pretty significant amount of time to learn the spin. It was like the first couple months I got there as a freshman, and then all like summer and fall, like after freshman year and a sophomore year, didn't quite happen for me. Don't really know why.
it's just some people it just
And it
doesn't
kind of
click
got to
right.
the point where like hammer and discus really like became my clear two better ones. So shot kind of became okay. We'll keep gliding. I can
Like
punch.
what? Yeah,
I
what
can
can
punch
you
it
put
pretty good
in
and
and
see if
get
I can
the
feel a few conference points here and there. And yeah,
exactly what could we using the amount of time you have left? What could we get the highest
exactly.
rate of return on?
Yeah,
Which nothing wrong with that. I feel a lot of people, in my experience, I just started coaching since running out of eligibility, just with like some high school, middle school kids,
mhm,
and a lot of kids are so concerned about I need to spin right away, I need to spin right away, but a lot of them never held a shot put before, and it's like I have one kid that he has a really good stand throw baseball background, and he's concerned about he wants to throw far, but I know like he has baseball. Like he's only going to throw for a
right.
little bit at a time. So I have him shuffling in like a crow hop, and it's working really
Yeah,
well.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I
I
think
think
a
it
lot
also
of it is
just
finding
depends
what
on
works for you.
kind of what your goals are. And yeah, for us, shot kind of just became at a certain point like, all right, I'm gonna try to sneak some conference points where I can, and kind of worked out. But
Yeah, and
the
so
we it was a meet, or we did like a little mock meet sometime in like later in the fall of my sophomore year when I'd been trying to spin for like I think like a solid 4 or 5 months at that point, and it was going okay. I don't remember distances, but I was just like, hey, can I just like try gliding a couple and see what happens? And did, and it was farther. And I'm like, okay, we're we're done with this.
yeah, I got to like a rut when I first started spinning, and my roommate Nick, he was throwing with me. We were both the same grade, and we're both learning to spin. And I was so mad at practice. I said something of, "I bet I could glide so much farther than this." So Nick was like, "Okay, go ahead," and I did not throw very far at all, and he laughed at me. And that was just one of those days where I felt like just so mad, like you can't control what's happening.
Yeah.
But no, yeah, luckily I got it to work eventually. But hammer throw was not for me. Was actually a state champion hammer, so that's something no one could
Okay.
take from me. I did not turn at all. I did three winds and just kind of swung it around, hope for the best. And I was feeling like, okay, maybe I could throw hammer in college. And no,
No.
no, no hammer, no
No.
weight for me.
Yeah, you see that too. Sometimes you just try it for a while, and you say, all right, this just Doesn't seem like it's working. We'll just stick to the other ones.
Yeah, and even my last couple of years in Nebraska, they'd make me throw the weight in the inter squad meet, and that was just so frustrating because I really pride myself in my strength, and I see people that I know I'm twice as strong as just slinging it out there, and I'm just fighting for my life for 50 feet, and that just made me so mad. But no, I guess we can kind of get back on track here, talking about your journey. So when you were playing volleyball in high school, and I guess transitioning to throwing, did you do much for weightlifting or any type of that type of resistance training?
In high school, no. Like in the summers leading up to volleyball, we would do like more so conditioning stuff that had like some elements in the weight room. Um but when it came to like actual strength training, like I didn't really do anything. And so once I got a spot on the team at Notre Dame and like that summer leading up to when I was gonna head out there, I knew that I kind of had to like at least get a little base or I was just gonna get killed, like kind of realizing what I was actually getting myself into. And so I got in touch with I'm from Eastern Pennsylvania, Bethlehem, Lehigh Valley area. And so I got in touch with a strength and conditioning coach there who kind of helped like teach me the ropes a little bit before I got to college. But I really had really no kind of strength base at all. And anything I had was just kind of like from
More the conditioning aspect of the other
yeah, and
sports.
just like crossover from other sports and stuff that I did.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Learning curve in that area for me.
So that first fall at Notre Dame, how much did you see your numbers jump in the weight room?
Oh gosh. I know my biggest jump was from year one to year two. Year one's hard to say because I just had no frame
There's
of
no baseline.
yeah, no baseline. I remember like in the first month I was there, like tweaked my pec or something with like literally like 115 on the bar for bench. Like it was like maybe it even been 95. I don't even remember. It was not good. I think maybe by my freshman year I could squat like cleans and stuff. I don't remember clean. I didn't figure out how to clean for like an entire semester at least. I would just like smack it off my quads as hard as I could and just hope to get it up. I didn't really actually learn to clean until like semester two. But yeah, I think squat between year one and year two, I got up from like 245 to right around 300. And the other numbers I'm kind of fuzzy on, but I remember that was kind of like sticks out as the biggest jump for me.
Yeah, and so throughout that time, did you notice any correlation with your throws increasing with the weight room jumps?
Yeah, that's also hard to say.
Oh, well, yeah, because it's no
Yeah,
baseline.
because also like yeah, so what I had 2 years of throwing discus under my belt and 1 year shot. And so I mean I think, yeah, weight room plus, actually learning solid technique for most of these things. I mean, yeah, year one to year two, I mean, jumps in the weight room and in the throws, and I mean, I think yeah, I did 3-ish meters onto my discus from year one to year two. I mean, hammer was a 10-meter jump from year one to year two.
Wow.
Yeah, but it's just kind of again hard to say just because like especially like comparing to high school, I had so little baseline of like what I was actually doing.
Yeah, and when you were learning the hammer, this is something I think a lot of beginners would be interested in hearing. Did you work on doing like a 2 turn, a 3 turn, or you jump straight to 4 turns?
Yeah. So first 2 years I was a three-turner. Yeah. And then by junior year was up to four, toe and three. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
no,
at
that's
a certain point we might have tried to kind of sprinkle in like work a little four-turn work here and there, but it was just kind of okay. At a certain point I was throwing farthest with a three-turn and yeah.
no, that makes sense. And so I guess first year you're still getting used to all your training. Second year you said your numbers started jumping up. And so was your third year your breakout year in terms of performing?
Yes and no. Yes, indoors. No outdoors because year three for me was COVID. So yeah, 2020 was my junior year of college. So indoor, yes. That was when the weight really started to take off for me. And so I think progression of the weight throw. Freshman year I was like 1790 something. Sophomore year I popped off a 2108 at conference.
Wow.
Won at the time, which was crazy and has not that could not win at all in any of the years since. And then junior year ended the year with a 2331, which ended up being my collegiate PR. I think was the top seed going into the national meet, and we were in Albuquerque, and then it didn't happen.
So
So I don't know
what
what would have
was
happened there, but
so would you like to describe what that was like? A couple of
oh,
my teammates have told me what it was like.
it was
But when
so nuts. And so,
yeah,
yeah, so I was there with, well, for throwers, it was just me and my teammate Abby, who was like a 22, 20 something meter weight thrower. So it was a good little tandem, the two of us. So as our throws coach, I think we had a good men's DMR at the time and a couple good distance runners. So yeah, we had already gotten there, had been there for like a day or two, and things just like progressively started getting more like restricted. So it was like, okay, the first thing was, they're not going to have spectators. And I'm like, oh, it's a bummer. My parents already flew out, but it's okay. We still get to compete. And then they're like, okay, only like coaches and athletes will be in there. I'm like, okay, cool. And then it was the turning point was like the whole thing with the NBA shutting down. And then it was like a few hours later that it shut down for us. So we were heading over to the track for a shakeout because it was the day before we were supposed to compete. Like, Beltran gets a text that the ACC was pulling us out. So like the ACC was pulling out all of the ACC schools out of the meet, had to go home. So like we still like there was talk that they were gonna try to fight it, so we still went to shake out or something like that. But it was just so weird. Like everyone's just walking around talking to each other, like no idea what's going on. And actually, the craziest thing I remember from that was there were two, I guess, 400 runners I think they were from Virginia Tech, who just ended up like going on the track and running their race anyway, which
huh.
was like super cool and so sad and weird. So yeah, so then just flew back to South Bend, packed a couple bags, and went home.
Yeah, because from my perspective, I wasn't at nationals. That was my freshman year,
Mm.
but my teammates were there, and they said they were warming up, and then one of the throwers from Wisconsin ran over and had a Twitter open, and they were
Yeah.
announcing that the Big Ten pulled kids. And to my understanding, they got their flights changed to that night, and they went
Yeah,
back to the hotel. Like,
we were out the
yeah,
next morning. Yeah.
yeah, because they got home super late, and I remember one of them, like everyone was like kind of grumpy and mad, and
Oh yeah, it
one
was horrible.
guy was asking if they could stop by McDonald's on the way home in the van, and that apparently did not lighten the mood for everyone. But no, that was a absolute crazy time
Yeah.
because I remember watching. That was right around the Big Ten basketball tournament time,
Mhm.
and Nebraska's coach got really sick and was puking and green, and that's when COVID was like no one knew what
Yeah.
it was.
Oh yeah, no one knew what was going on.
And we
Yeah.
shared like that week. We lifted with basketball, like they were at the same place. And so we in our group chat, we're like, "Are we gonna have to like go in like
Yeah.
hazmat areas or what's going on
Yeah,
here?"
I remember. So the last meet before that happened was obviously indoor conference, and we actually hosted that year, which was really cool. But I just remember like, yeah, talking to my trainer about it. I'm like, oh, what's gonna happen? What's this gonna mean for outdoor season? Like what meets can we go to, whatever. And there was none. But
Yeah, because it was for us. That was what like a Wednesday, something around those lines when that started happening. Because I believe for our timeline, Thursday hit, and that's when the school announced that we're going to be having spring break an extra week.
mhm,
Classes will be online only the rest of the year, and we were trying to brainstorm what was going on, if we're leaving or if we're staying, and
yeah,
uh there was rumors that the athletic department was going to close at the end of Thursday, and then the
yeah,
dorms all offered us like a rebate if we would leave that weekend.
jeez.
So yeah, it was an absolute mess. But were you able to bring any implements home to train, or what did that spring look like for you?
Yeah. So not at first, but then I remember. So yeah, because we were also on spring break at the time, and I only packed, yeah, like an extra bag beyond what I had at nationals with me. And then so all our stuff was in the dorm because at Notre Dame you live on campus for 3 years, and so I was still in the dorms at the time too. So we had to like in the beginning of June, I think it was. So I was at home for like a month and a half, and I remember even hearing about kids who like didn't bring books home for spring break, but like you couldn't go back to our dorms for another month and a half, so just like didn't have their books for the rest of the semester. But anyway, yeah, got back to move. We had like scheduled 30-minute blocks to like move all our stuff out of our dorm, and we couldn't only one person on a floor at a time. And but yeah, so I think when I went back for that, snuck into the shed and took some stuff to throw at home that summer.
Yeah, for my experience, it was more of the I think I was out by Saturday once they shut everything down and told us we were gone. But for me, like I grew up in Omaha and Lincoln's only like 45, 50 minutes away. So it was really quick. And it worked out for me that all my classes I could do in the morning. The school district that went to school in, they actually closed their campuses down. They would actually took caution tape and threaded it through all the hurdles, and
Wow.
so you couldn't go on the track. The shot put area was fine, but then they had like police start patrolling the area and kicking kids out. And luckily, the a different technical city or town of Omaha is like a mile the other direction before I grew up,
Yeah.
and they could care less. And so I would go throw there, and we had a gym that you're only allowed 10 people in a building. And so you have to sit on the curb and wait for your turn. You had 1 hour to lift. But since I was an athlete,
Oh
they
my
would
gosh.
let me lift until they needed to kick someone out after my hour was up.
Yeah.
So it was an absolute just
Yeah.
crazy time trying to make
Yeah.
stuff
That
work.
stuff was also nuts. Yeah. So that was, yes, smack in the middle of my college career. But yeah, still, you know, kept moving forward after that. But that was definitely something interesting to kind of have right in the middle and gave me a fifth year that I was never planning on because I never redshirted at any point and never planned on that. So
So then when you found out that, you're getting another year of eligibility of indoor, did you just redshirt that fourth year then for outdoor?
we didn't need to. So because we didn't get an outdoor junior year.
Oh,
Um,
so yeah, it balanced
and
out.
that was the thing then. So my senior year, that was the indoor season that didn't count.
Yep.
So I got 5 indoor seasons.
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
never had to redshirt at any point other than
Getting
the
sent home in the
COVID
spring.
shutdown.
Okay, yeah, that's the same for me. But I guess during that time, did you have to when you had to figure out you had to go an extra year, did you extend your degree out or what was the plan for that?
So I finished up my degree like normal. So my kind of plan while I was in college was I was going to go to grad school for sports psych after I was done with track and everything. Notre Dame didn't really have any masters or grad programs in that area or really related to that. And so I know like a lot of my teammates, there are a lot of like 1 year kind of like business masters they could have done. And so I'm like, well, I don't know if I want to, get a master's I'm not going to use, and maybe I can get some courses that then I can transfer towards
Yeah, the
whatever
new
grad
program.
program I go to next. So I just took a bunch of non-degree seeking, mostly psych graduate courses and some like statistics classes and just some fun stuff. I've been working my butt off for the last 4 years.
Yeah, you deserve it.
So I'm like, okay, I can, take a couple fun classes here and there. And yeah, so I think I was only in 9 or 10 credit hours both of those semesters, which was very nice.
Bet. So that's good. So that didn't affect your overall schedule. So when you came back for your fourth year, and I know there was probably a bazillion different COVID restrictions for
Yeah.
training and stuff like that. What was the biggest challenge you faced during that time?
Well, to pivot it a little bit, the biggest challenge during that time wasn't exactly COVID related. So we got back from COVID in the fall, everything was normal. Spring, most of everything was normal. Then actually kind of towards the end of my senior of school, so I guess
Fourth
the
year.
fourth year outdoor season, the coach was actually diagnosed with cancer. And so that was also a very tricky thing to navigate the rest of that time.
No, I bet so.
Yeah, just him being kind of in and out with treatment stuff and obviously like being very worried about him as well. And yeah, so I definitely, that kind of sticks out more for me from that time more than any of the COVID stuff.
No,
But
I bet that would be really difficult to get through.
yeah,
So then, with your fourth year with training and getting back into the groove and with dealing with your coach's illness at that time, did that give you any thoughts of not competing for your fifth year, or are you dead set on coming back?
really, yeah, I was pretty committed on coming back just because, I hadn't really had thoughts too much at that point of like continuing post collegiately, but more so just thinking about like, okay, I'm getting this last year, this is like a really special opportunity. Like, I'm going to work for the rest of my life. But this is like, at the time, I'm thinking the last chance I get to do this. So I'm like, okay, I can put off, working or going to school more or anything like that to come back for a fifth year.
Yeah, and then I guess throughout your fifth year, at the end of that, did you know right away that you wanted to go post collegiate?
Pretty much. That was something yeah, was kind of debating that whole year. So my fourth year ended, that was 2021. So that year ended at Olympic trials. And so I was like the second to last person to get in, like 23rd of 24th to get in, ended up like throwing a little PR and just missing the final. I got 13th. So I was first person
Ah,
in the 12-person final. So that I think is what sort of like planted the seed a little bit. Like obviously still being very far off of, what it would take to make the team or, I wasn't even in the final, but just like that experience was like, okay, this is something I could see myself still pursuing. But I was also just, I want to see how the fifth year goes. I was, I kind of had a goal in mind of like, okay, if I throw 70 my fifth year, I'll keep going. That didn't happen, but so I didn't really firmly commit to anything either way. So I ended up not applying to any grad schools that fifth year. Um, just because I didn't want to like be committed to go to a grad school and then decided I want to keep throwing and basically lose my deposit.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I just kind of, didn't really make any firm commitments that year and just figured, I would kind of see where that year would take me. And yeah, by the end I knew that was what I was gonna do.
And then did you stay at train Notre Dame right away, or where did you? What was the
I did
next
not.
step for you?
Oh, yeah, mostly because of my coach's illness. And so he had gone into remission sometime during like indoor of my fifth year, but then by outdoor, like it was back and things weren't looking too good. And so that was kind of the main factor that I was going to kind of start to look for somewhere else to go. Also, a little bit of, I mean, I absolutely adored my time at Notre Dame, would relive it again a million times if I could. A little bit of thinking that a fresh start wouldn't be a bad thing and like a fresh set of eyes and kind of looking at what I'm doing. And
Yeah,
yeah,
new place.
yeah,
And so did you go to Ashland right away?
I did. Yeah. So I talked to a few different coaches who might have been willing to work with me. How I ended up at Ashland is so I had never met AG at any point before I started looking at different places to go, but I did know Morgan Shago, who had been training post collegiately with AG for the previous couple years. Actually, our dads were both from like the same part of Pennsylvania and like played football against each other in high school and went into like the beverage distributor business. And so they knew each other well. And so I knew Morgan. And so just kind of like sent out a feeler of like, hey, this is my situation. I'm thinking about throwing post collegiate. Like, would you like put in a word for me with AG? And this was just when AG had been hired at Ashland. So he would be
Yep.
starting at Ashland in the fall, moving from USD. And Morgan's like, oh yeah, definitely. Like this will work out perfect because his now wife, Laura, had been competing post collegiate, but she was retiring. So Morgan's like, oh yeah, I could definitely use a new training partner. Like I'll put in a word. And so I ended up, meeting up with AG at one point that summer in Ashland and chatted for like an hour or so. And yeah, I knew pretty quick that like, all right, this is the spot I want to be at.
Yeah. Then how far away from home is Ashland from you? I guess for you.
About 6.5 to 7. So it's closer than South Bend, which is about 10. Yeah,
That's
it's
not too bad.
closer.
That's
It's drive there with a stop or two.
yeah,
Too bad.
yeah. And so then that would have been a couple years ago.
Yeah, so that was So I finished up my fifth year in 2022. So I moved to Ashland like end of summer 2022.
Then how big of a transition was it from going from, I guess, the student athlete to post collegiate? Like, how did you deal with that?
Better in some ways, tougher in other ways. So better in terms of like, not having homework to do at night or, other things like that. A little bit tougher because if you remember what I said about not making any commitments my
Yep.
fifth year, I also didn't have a job. So now all of a sudden I had to pay rent and stuff that had all previously been covered by room and board scholarship. So I know a lot of police colleges will come out with, at least part-time or full-time kind of like remote jobs that they can do alongside training. I didn't have that. I looked for a bit, but I was kind of running out of time to get something lined up before I really had to start, supporting myself.
Yeah.
And so I actually started working as a waitress in Ashland just because it was what I could get and what, fit best within my schedule and had a degree of flexibility to swap shifts and all that stuff. So it worked out well until competition season came around. And, it's tricky because like it works great during the week. As a waitress, your most lucrative, times to work are on the weekend, and that's when I'm in Tucson or Ironwood or anywhere when
Yeah.
like, when you make the bulk of your pay. So it stopped working at a certain point, but thankfully I had a good enough first year that that could kind of support me going into year 2 that I was able to not waitress anymore.
So then, are you just a full time athlete now?
Yes, yeah, I do some kind of like, I guess you call it like freelancer work online, like kind of doing some, it's not programming because I don't know how to program, but it's like I basically help like train AI bots to be better.
Oh,
And
like the API stuff?
yeah, pretty much. So yeah, I mean it's on my own time. It's all contract work, so it might not be there, but yeah, between that and throwing, it's enough for where I'm at now. Thankfully, Ashland is very cheap cost of living, and so I can kind of get by that way. But
Well, that's
yeah,
awesome to hear.
yeah,
Yeah. So, do you have any advice for people that are looking to start training post collegiately that might be like this is like their last year of eligibility and they're looking to keep going on after this year?
yeah. I would say focus on what you need to do. So for people who are still in college, focus on what you need to do to throw far, and the rest will kind of fall into place. Like that's how I kind of approached my 5th year, was just doing what I needed to do to throw farther. If it ends up working out for me that I'll keep going, then I'll keep going. I never really had that as like a set end goal in mind. So just like leaving yourself open to, different possibilities, and again, also for most of that time, I thought I was going to stay at Notre Dame. Like, Coach and I had a conversation or two about it, not nothing too, set in stone. But once it became clear that wasn't really, going to be too much of an option anymore, being open to, taking a chance and move somewhere that you've never been and working with someone you've never met, and yeah, just taking a chance and kind of seeing what happens.
Yeah. So, what was it like transitioning from the coaching style and like programming periodization that you've had for the last 5 years and then having a whole new experience at a new place and I guess a whole like new lifestyle?
Yeah. I would say, I guess, from a throwing perspective, very, very different. Not in too much in terms of like volume or what balls we're throwing, but just like the technical emphases that my coach at Notre Dame have versus AG were two completely different things. And there would be times where AG would tell me, like, hey, don't do XYZ, when XYZ had been exactly what my coach at Notre Dame had been telling me to do.
Yeah, that's always interesting where you take two coaches and everyone's going to have different ideas, different
Exactly.
philosophies, and there's not like
Yeah.
one equation to throw far. And I think that's
Exactly. Yeah,
something
and
that
it's,
a lot
it's
of
not
people
even to
need
say like
to know.
one, yeah, there's a million different ways to skin a cat, and it's not even to say that one is better than the other. It's just happened that the two, what I was coming in with versus what AG was trying to teach me, those two just happen to be very incompatible. And so, I mean, first year and even still a bit of last year, just a lot of, I mean, just going back to basics, breaking bad habits, just really just relearning how to throw completely. And, looking at my first year out, like, yeah, I had a couple really far throws. I PR'd. My PR compared to my last year of college was like 6 meters further. And I had
Which is
another
a
at like,
significant jump.
yeah, yeah, it's up to like 73.87. And then I had one other meet at like a 71.99, but then I had no other meets over 70. So it's just like, just like learning the new technique. Sometimes I would get it, a lot of the time it wouldn't stick. And then last year was a lot better in that regard of just like really, understanding what it is I need to do, getting that down, but still even saw some kind of, I guess, growing pains there. But
Yeah.
well, it
So
was a
how
really big adjustment, and it was, I mean, I don't remember distances of different balls off the top of my head, but it was humbling.
how do you handle the mental aspect of that? Because as humans, I feel we are just so so
Yeah,
much of us is just wired to we need instantaneous results. Where if you do a drill and throw it correctly, it might be less than what you just did for
right,
whatever
right.
reasons, but that's the correct way. And then being able to tell yourself like this is good, even though the throw before was not technically sound but went further.
Right. Yeah, I think just like really just trying to have like was really just trying to have patience with myself and reminding myself that hey, like I'm really doing a complete overhaul of, I mean, especially since I hadn't thrown hammer before college, of like all I've ever known of how to throw the hammer. And so just trying to remind myself and like be patient of that growth process, and also remembering the long-term goals that I had and knowing that like, yeah, it's necessary to like break me down a bit now to like be able to build up to that later.
Yeah. And so when you talk about goals, are you someone that writes your goals out, or how do you utilize your goals?
I don't, so there's like big long-term goals, which is for me making the team in 2028. Then there's kind of like in between goals of for me making the world team this year, 2025. But to get there is all the little process goals along the way. And those are the things that you need to hit in order, you know, the big goal is at the top of the staircase, but all the little process goals are all the stairs that you need to get there. So whether that's, okay, I need to, you know, get my squat up another 20 pounds this year if I can. I'm gonna, you know, this fall, my goal was really to like just hammer down a really good, technical, repeatable throw that I have something to like build on later.
Exactly. So something that you can log as a stepping
Yeah.
stone for the next goal. No,
Yeah.
I
So like
think
I'm not
stuff like
going
that's
into
really nice.
practice every day, like, you know, thinking about, you know, the 2028 Olympics. Like I have, you know, Tokyo 2025 written down in the front of my journal, and I might flip that page open if I have a really hard conditioning or ab workout that I need just a little push to get me through. But like mostly on a day-to-day basis, it's just kind of like attacking whatever it is I have that day or that week or that cycle that's, you know, gonna get me better.
Yeah. And so one thing with a new training style and new environment, were there any new like rehab methods or nutritional habits that you picked up that you thought were beneficial?
That is a fantastic question. Sleep. I was just telling one of my athletes about this the other day. That's like the biggest lifestyle change from college to post collegiate for me. Partly because, again, like I was saying, like didn't have homework anymore. I was a double major in college, didn't have to, you know, do everything for that. Yeah, I don't have anything at night. I can actually go to sleep, but also making an effort to prioritize it myself. And so, I mean, I had just a ton of like tiny nagging injuries in college. And like, you know, these days things will still pop up over here, like every here and there, but it's a lot less frequent, even though like the intensity of training that I'm doing has gone up. And I think that's, I mean, really the only significant difference from college to post collegiate for me, but has, yeah, reaped a lot of good rewards.
Yeah, no, sleep has great
Well, you
effects for
always hear
training.
about it. You always say like, oh, make sure to get your 8 hours of sleep. And in college, you're just like, nah, like I have stuff to do. That doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I was
You're
kind
wondering
of
why your back and your hamstring and your neck and your shoulders hurt all the time, and why your hip is spasming and all this stuff. That, yeah, it's because you don't sleep.
yeah, that's something that
And I get
I
that now,
always
but
was like I understood, but sometimes I wasn't great about it. I'm like, okay, we're getting 7 hours of sleep, that's fine. But there was a time that I remember look, and I do not suggest this for all you students out there. This is just me being different. I had like a big homework assignment due, and I had a good grade in the class, and it was getting late. I put a lot of effort into it, and I knew I didn't have it all finished. And so I looked at it as, okay, am I going to spend the next 2 hours? It's already like, you know, like 10 o'clock looking at this assignment, and I'm only going to get like a couple more little pieces done, and I'm going to turn it in, and I'm gonna lose out those 2 hours of sleep. And I know I had like a tough like squat workout the next day. Or am I satisfied? This is a good effort. I'm turning this thing in. We're on to the next goal. And so there were a handful of times. And roommate Lorenzo, if he's listening to this, he's probably laughing super hard right now. And that's kind of what accounting was like for us half the time. And I always thought that was something that helped my training, was being aware of kind of just looking at everything differently and more of the what am I getting in, what am I getting out, which
yeah.
you should
Yeah,
always try to get the best you can do and everything, but
yeah, that's the liberty I gave myself my 5th year by, you know, not going for a degree, because the previous 4 years I would not have done that at all. I was up in the library till 2 a.m. writing papers and reading studies and all this stuff that, yeah, gave myself a little bit of freedom that last year to prioritize training a little more.
yeah, no, I was fortunate. I was in the same boat. I was in an online program, so I had a internship in the morning, and then it was just training all day, and which really made the weekend kind of not fun because then you had like, you know, a full week of like
Yeah.
reading assignments and papers to write between Saturday to Sunday. But No, I think that was also pretty helpful at that point for me. But I guess a popular topic we've talked about here on a couple of episodes is we talked about people's interests outside of throwing and just the relation to having a balance in life where you can't be a thrower 100% of the day every day, unfortunately. Or if you can, that's awesome. But what outside of throwing brings you happiness or do you enjoy doing?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the cliche answer that has made my life a lot better this year is I got married in November. And so that definitely gives me, a lot of good things to get my mind off of throwing because we hadn't lived together previously. And so I would just like get home from training and just think about training for the rest of the night and, spend the whole rest of the night watching my videos and looking at all that stuff. And so now I can do that for a little bit, but I also have, a fun person to talk to and like play games with and, you know, watch YouTube and just get my mind off of things other than throwing, which I think has been a nice mental shift.
It's actually an awesome. It's awesome that you said that because that is actually kind of the reason how I met my fiance a few years ago. I was having a rough string of luck at practices and competitions during my first year when Coach St. Clair came to Nebraska, and there was one day because I was watching my film all the time, like every
Yeah.
second of my day was thinking about throwing, and he was like, "Kevin, you need to go find yourself a girlfriend. That will fix you." And so, sure enough, that's actually like around the time that I ended up meeting Haley. And so I said something to him like, Coach, thank you. And once we got engaged, he was one of the first people I texted. And I was like, Coach, this is some great advice. This has really worked out. But no, I 100% agree with that because it's like you have more like a whole new dimension of things to look forward to and things going on. That I always felt that was helpful for me too. And plus, it held me accountable,
Yeah.
another person in your inner circle that makes sure that you're taking care of yourself and you're, giving your best effort.
Yeah. And Cade was also a thrower. He was a shot putter at Louisville. So he also gets it.
Oh, that's also nice.
What I'm doing. Yeah. Yeah. Other than that, I mean, yeah, I like to cook. And so I have celiac. And so I don't eat out much at all.
Oh, yep.
So I do most of the cooking myself, which is really, really good that I enjoy it. And also, yeah, and that's kind of another fun thing we like to do is just finding good and safe places to eat. So like we found a really good like Asian place in the next town over who was really safe about gluten-free stuff. And I was like so happy because I couldn't remember the last time I had, orange chicken, which was one of my favorite things pre-celiac. But yeah, so that's kind of a fun thing like to do like either around here or when we're on the road because he'll come with me to meets every now and then.
Yeah, no, that would definitely make eating out and traveling hard. A lot of family on my dad's side have celiac disease.
Yeah.
And my mom is a sugar artist in her free time. And so she was always in charge of making all the desserts for all the family events. And I'm pretty sure she sanitized about every square inch of that kitchen. And
Oh yeah.
she would barricade it with chairs so we couldn't come in and make a mess while she's,
Yeah.
preparing things for everyone with celiac.
Yeah.
But no, so I guess kind of regarding that, how are you able to, I guess, be sure that you're eating safe while you're traveling all over the place, going to places you've never been to before?
Right. So, I mean, a big thing of it is whenever I can, I'll get an Airbnb instead of a hotel. So, like, I can have a kitchen there. I can, cook some meals for myself and know what's going into it. But also, so there's an app that's basically like Yelp, but is like crowdsourced by people who are all like celiac and gluten free. And I mean, it's like there's a huge network of stuff. And so I can be like, oh, I'm going to, let's Tucson for a meet. And so I remember last time I was at Tucson Elite last year, I found like a dedicated gluten-free bakery on the app and, got some treats
Well, that's
there.
awesome because I have a couple of friends in that same boat.
Yeah, so it makes it a lot easier.
Yeah. And then when you mentioned that you like to cook, I have an episode that hasn't came out yet where we talked with one of our guests about like a lot of throwers love cooking where there's just so many different people. Like I just released a thing of Roger was showing his smoker setup and he had some duck and goose being cooked out there.
True. I don't hunt my own food.
No, I don't either. But, I track my calories down. I eat them. But no, so we always thought I was kind of making some jokes about we need to make a thrower cookbook and everyone can have like their favorite thing to make. So if we did something like that, what would be
so down for that.
What would be Rachel's signature dish?
Oh, I already know. So this is kind of like a side dish, but a lot of the time we'll do like a caramelized onion bread. So it's basically like garlic bread, but you also like spend hours cooking down a bunch of onions and a bunch of butter till they're like dark brown and caramelized and amazing. And so you put that on the bread with some cheese. It's really easy, but it's so freaking good. I took it to our throws giving at Ashland this year and got a lot of compliments on it. And you know when it's coming from, like you're saying, when it's coming from throwers, like you know it's good. So
Exactly. And then I bet just like the onions and all that also help if it's, gluten free, because gluten free bread is typically a
yeah,
little less
yeah,
flavor.
that's also true. You
Yeah, no,
know,
that's
maybe
good.
it doesn't have to be.
Either or. But no, I guess kind of just starting to wrap things up here. So, what would you tell yourself when you were first getting started in throwing? If you had any advice for what young Rachel was going
Oh
to
boy.
see herself into, where she didn't even have any idea she was going to throw a hammer,
Yeah,
and she just found out she's going to go throw in college?
yeah. Geez. Number one, and if it was me in high school, I would buy myself a hammer and say start doing turns. But two, I mean, just keep like believing in yourself and believing in the people in your corner. Like I've had a lot of people who like my career has been built on people who invest in me more than they had to. So that was like, my high school coach, driving me to clinics all over Pennsylvania, or, Beltran, my college coach, still being there in the middle of chemo, or now, AG being there with me to coach me all hours of the day, even though he has a whole collegiate program to run. And so I think just also, yeah, just believing in the people that are in your corner and, finding good people to surround yourself with.
I think that would be really important.
Yeah.
I think that's well said.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I guess kind of to wrap things up here, do you have any last bits of advice you'd like to share with everyone that are aspiring throwers?
Bits of advice. I would say for most people, the weight throw isn't a bad thing. Now, it's a little different when you're post collegiate and like I only throw it about once a week, but look at the weight as just a short, heavy hammer, and I think that'll start to be a lot more helpful of a thing. I think it gets a lot of a bad rap from a lot of people who don't like it. I think that's like what we look at it as is another short, heavy hammer. It's a good thing to work on strength and quickness and holding positions. And it's look at it as another opportunity to refine your hammer technique rather than just a big ugly ball.
Yeah,
That's always something I'll get on a little bit of a soapbox about. But
no, and unfortunately, I'd have to agree. Even if you're a shot putter, like if you can develop that like force output and the weight throw, that's going to significantly help you just as a glorified training mechanism for
yeah,
shot put, discus. And now I kind of need to buy into that. I never really gave it a chance, unfortunately, but if I could do it again, I would definitely try to focus a little bit more on the weight.
yeah. And again, it doesn't even have to be a focus. Just look at it as a training tool for your hammer. And I think it'll go a little bit better. And you might hate it
Exactly.
a little less.
Exactly. I'll make the suffering a little less worse. Yeah. Well, anyways, Rachel, thank you again for coming on the Throw
Of
Zone.
course.
We really
Of
appreciate
course.
having you here. And everyone, go give Rachel a follow on social media to see her continue on her professional throwing journey. And remember to give us a subscribe, a follow, or whatever platform you're using to stay tuned in for upcoming episodes of the Throw Zone. We are happy to keep on cranking out fun content, and we're looking to keep on adding more stories and try to shed the light on throws for more and more people. And so that is it for this week's episode. We'll catch you on the next one.